Thanks for joining us today. Tell me, what is your connection to the Courage Ride?
My connection to the Courage Ride. I participated in the Courage Ride a couple years ago, and I found out about it because I was a patient at University of Iowa. I am a survivor of sarcoma, and am just excited to be a part of something that will help fund some research to get more answers about it.
Yeah, and I, tell me how much you feel comfortable sharing and stuff. But I'm interested in kind of your journey with sarcoma cancer, and I imagine it was started out pretty scary.
Yeah, it was not anything that we expected. So I had been married for just almost a year, and I had like a knee that was kind of bugging me, and was doing physical therapy and thought that it was a hamstring issue. And then finally, a physical therapist said, something's just not right. And so I went and got it checked out, and it ended up being a tumor. They still thought, because of my age and because of where it was, they thought that it probably wasn't cancerous. But I knew I'd have to have a knee surgery to have it taken out. And then unfortunately it was. It
Mhm.
was sarcoma. I had never heard of sarcoma. From what I understand, it's not a genetic thing. There's nothing, it didn't run in my family or anything like that. So we kind of took off running from there and did some aggressive treatment and those kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, I mean, that's a lot of people's nightmare, right? Is getting thinking something might be benign and then being like, oh my gosh, this is cancer. I don't know what those early days are like. I imagine it's a whirlwind of fear and action almost.
Yes, well, absolutely. Well, um, as silly as it sounds, we were planning to just do a little family getaway to Chicago. And then we found out we had the tumor, then they said, well, we'll biopsy it, and you're going to have surgery next month. And so we thought, well, why don't we just go ahead and do this little vacation? And that's where we were when we got the phone call. So, when I got the first phone call, they didn't tell me they didn't say the word sarcoma, or they didn't say the word cancer. And so I was pretty naive and still didn't really register what was going on. And I was with my children and my husband. We were in downtown Chicago. We had gotten lost, and I thought, this is like really bad, really bad timing for this.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't even until a day after that when the nurse called and said, hey, you've got to be here on Thursday. And I said, is this cancer? And she said, I don't feel comfortable talking with you about that. I want you to talk with the doctor. And I
Mm.
thought, well, that's kind of bad, right? Like,
Yeah.
that shouldn't happen. And then, so she had the doctor call me back, and he did explain it. And he gave me the best advice ever. He said, I'm going to tell you what it is, but I don't want you to Google it, because there's a lot of scary stuff out there,
Mhm.
and we need you to get here, and we need you to be ready when you get here. And so to this day, I still have not Googled it. And I'm very
Oh.
thankful for that.
Yeah, interesting, because as we know with small things, Googling medical things just scares you further. And yeah,
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. So, um, talk a bit about the treatment that you got,
Yeah.
and how, I guess, I mean, how you are where you are now.
Yeah. So those first few weeks were a complete whirlwind of testing and figuring everything out. And we actually came straight from Chicago to the hospital, and somebody met us there and took our kids, because we had to be there it was that urgent. And so we started out, I had some inpatient treatment, where I would go in for, sometimes it was 2 days, other times it was like more like 5 days. So it either had a short treatment or a long treatment. And then in between times, there was a couple weeks at a time. Now, I did not handle treatment well at all. Very, very sick instantly. And just a lot of long nights in the
Mhm.
hospital. And some of those longer stays, the length of stay was determined on how well my body would recover and if it was safe enough for me to leave. And so sometimes I would think I would just be praying and hoping every day, like maybe today will be the day I get to go home. And then it wasn't. And then it was maybe the next day. And so some long stays in there, which is really hard because it's quite a distance from my home. And so my husband and my two daughters were at home. And that was just a big, it was a juggling act to try to figure out how to do everything.
Yeah, imagine.
Yeah. And so the nurses at the University of Iowa became friends and would come and sometimes on their break just come and sit and chat, or we'd talk about wedding plans, or all those different kinds of things. And that really helped a lot me to get through those kind of things. So there was probably the hardest time in treatment was a time when I developed a lot of mouth sores and couldn't eat or drink. And that was a hard time. I remember it was like day after day after day of it not getting better, and feeling really alone, alone in the suffering part, but again, those nurses were there, and Dr. Manga stopped by every single day I was in the hospital. He stopped to see me, and those kinds of things helped too. So I went through treatment for about 7 or 8 months, I believe. And then once they had taken in the midst of treatment, I also had to have surgery to have a lot of my femur removed, and then an entire new knee put in. And so kind of a long scar on my leg. And unfortunately, the results from that surgery told us that the chemo did not work. So then it was really frustrating because it felt like, man, I've done all this work and it did not kill the tumor. And so that was pretty concerning. So because of that, the doctors recommended, if it's not doing what it's supposed to do, why would we continue with it? So we ended up being able to cut chemo a little bit shorter than what we kind of expected when we started.
Yeah. Wow. So you've gone through this. How long ago was this?
Well, so that was in 2016, was the summer of 2000. So we're right at 4 years when I was first diagnosed.
Yeah.
And that lasted, through the beginning of 2017. And then I had to start learning things like how to walk again. And because I had been so weak and so sick for so long, that I lost a lot of strength and had to learn all kinds of things. So we actually have video of my first steps that I took in 2017. And, we kind of laugh about that. And so it was a long, sort of slow, just getting back to feeling better,
So where are you at now? Now it's 4 years later.
Yeah, well, so rewind to last year. So every, 90 days I go in to get checked up. And last year, a CAT scan came back with some suspicious things, and so on my lungs. So I ended up having to have lung surgery twice last year. One because there was a spot on my left side and on my right side. And so they removed those. The spot on the right side was cancerous, so it had come back. But they were able to get all of it, so I didn't have to do any treatment. And then the spot on the left side, because the right side was cancerous, they went ahead with the surgery on the left side. And it ended up being a tougher surgery than they expected. Had to take out a whole lobe of the lung, and only to find out that one was not cancerous. So it's kind of like a big kind of stroke of bad luck there.
Yeah.
And so then that recovery was also kind of challenging because of course your lungs are breathing. And so that kind of knocked me back a little bit. But we took some time, and I've been getting stronger since then. And so now we're a year from that, and I feel really good, and I'm just grateful and thankful for the life that I have.
Yeah. So what an inspiring story. And obviously your attitudes, you seem to be full of cheer, and like you seem to have such a a good attitude. I think a lot of us, it's inspiring to all of us to hear your story and kind of see how you are today and your attitude with it. So what does it mean for you then to see people participating in the virtual Courage Ride and helping out the cause?
I almost can't talk about it without getting emotional because when you go through cancer, there's so much that's out of your control. And I was completely dependent on my doctors and my nurses who were fantastic. And when I think about what we need is a cure for this, then I can't do that either. And so I'm again completely dependent on other people and their generosity and being willing to believe in a cause that saved my life and could save a whole lot of other people's lives and prevent people from having to go through some of those challenges that I did. So it means the world to me that people that are not even connected or not survivors themselves, but they would be willing to put their time and their energy and their resources toward helping those of us that were affected.
Yeah, and I imagine that's fine. Circling back to what you said earlier about feeling kind of alone in your suffering, I imagine it, having gone through that, feels all the more better to see a great group of people kind of join together.
Absolutely. And when I've gone to the Courage Ride before, and I was amazed that, it just so much support and people participating in something that's really fun and it's beautiful to be outside, and then at the same time to do good with it for the world. It's pretty humbling. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So we'll wrap up with this. What would you want to say to folks participating in years past or in this year virtually in the Courage Ride?
I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for giving. And I want you to know that I have 3 children that are so thankful that their mom is here. And I don't want that, I don't want anybody to think that it's unnoticed when they write a check or when they ride their bike or when, whatever they do. I want them to know that there's Amy in Iowa that is incredibly grateful for their contribution and that they've made the difference for me and for a lot of other people.